South African History of ANC and MKP in Exile in Lesotho, Part 2. Assassinations from border raids and abduction. In response to the growing activities of the ANC in South Africa, the Apartheid government responded by subjecting exiles to surveillance, assassinating suspected ANC activists, conducting cross-border raids, and arming and supporting the LLA to destabilize Lesotho. In July 1978, 6 South Africans were seriously injured in Lesotho when one of them opened a parcel bomb disguised as copies of the ANC publication. This was followed by an attack in 1979 when an ANC supporter, Father John Osmers, had an arm blown off by a parcel bomb. In December of the same year, when a plane from Swaziland to Lesotho was forced to land in South Africa due to bad weather, the security police detained an ANC man on the plane. He was eventually released back to Lesotho in May 1980 after lengthy negotiations with the South African government. In July 1980, the ANC's chief representative Tembisile Chris Hani escaped death when a car bomb was prematurely detonated. In February 1981, a house belonging to Kalaki Selo, a lawyer with connections to the ANC, was damaged in a grenade attack. That same year, in June, a founder member of COSAS and an ANC activist, Sizwe Kondile from Port Elizabeth, was abducted and killed by the members of Plapla's security police unit. Kondile, who worked closely with Chris Hani, was arrested in the Free State in June 1981. When the police attempted to turn him into an askari, a police agent, to assassinate Hani, he refused and was killed. The Apartheid government pressed up pressure on Lesotho by conducting more raids into the country. On 9th December 1982, just after midnight, about 100 commandos from South Africa crossed into Lesotho and raided flats and houses in Maseru, killing a total of 42 people, including 3 children. 30 of those killed were South Africans and 12 were Lesotho citizens. Some of those killed belonged to the ANC, including Zola Ngwini, the party's representative in the country. Oliver Tambo and Jonathan Lebuwa attended the funeral of those killed in the raid. More raids followed. A week after the 9th December raid, during an SADCC meeting in Lesotho, 5 bombs were off at the Maseru Reservoir. On 13th February 1983, one of the Maseru's 3 main fuel depots was blown up. Towards the end of the 1982, Mobs Qirana, on his way to meet the ANC leadership in Lesotho, disappeared at the Maseru border. He was last seen by Mzimasi Donald Qina, an MK combatant based in Maseru. By 1982, Hani had become prominent enough in the ANC to be the focus of several assassination attempts, including at least 1 car bomb. He was transferred from Lesotho to Lusaka in Zambia by the ANC political leadership. The increasing threat posed by South Africa to MK operatives in Lesotho became the subject of the ANC-NEC meeting on 25th January 1984 in Lusaka. The ANC resolved to review the party's activities in Lesotho, especially military activities and the transit of people and material. On 20th December 1985, the South African security forces carried out a cross-border raid in Lesotho that killed 9 people, 7 South Africans and 2 Lesotho nationals. In retaliation, Andrew Zonto and other members of MK placed a bomb in a shopping center at Amanzi Mtoti on 23 December 1985. In August 1987, Nicolo Pedro, who was carrying a letter to ANC contacts in Lesotho, was arrested and taken to the security branch offices at Kulenburg in Cape Town for interrogation. Sponsoring the Lesotho Liberation Army, LLA. On 27 January 1907, Lesotho held its first post-independence elections, which saw a tight contest for power between the BNP and BCP. The BNP failed to retain its parliamentary majority. Confronted with the prospect of defeat, Lebowa and BNP mounted a coup which denied the BCP ascendancy to power. Several members of the BCP were detained at the end of January 1970. In 1974, Moketle's party mounted an unsuccessful coup against the BNP, and the plotters were forced into exile, where they formed an armed wing known as the Lesotho Liberation Army, LLA. The PSC, which was sympathetic to the BCP, offered its facilities for guerrilla training. BCP recruits were to pretend to be PSC recruits, and then they would be given weapons by the Azanian People Liberation Army, APLA, which they would use in Lesotho. From 1974, APLA and LLA recruits were sent to Libya for military training. The government of Chief Jonathan Lebowa repeatedly criticized the South African government's policy of apartheid, and Lebowa declared his support for the African National Congress, ANC, which was banned in South Africa. This irked the apartheid government, who viewed the formation of the LLA as an opportunity to destabilize Lesotho and force members of the ANC and PSC to leave Lesotho. With the assistance of apartheid government, the LLA launched a number of raids into Lesotho from May 1979 to 1985, attacking key installations in the country. On 19 August 1981, attacking key installations in the country. On 19 August 1981, Lesotho Foreign Minister Moki Molapo stated that a meeting in Cape Town, the Southern Africa government promised that there would be no LLA activities inside Lesotho if the government removed all the refugees. PW Botha reportedly stated, "If you want to do something about the LLA camps, you must do something about the ANC." South Africa offered a handover LLA leader Moketle to the Lesotho government in exchange for ANC representative Chris Hani. On 20th December 1987, members of LLA, working together with the SADF, carried out an attack which killed 5 South Africans and 3 Lesotho nationals. While the LLA claimed responsibility, the government of Lesotho blamed Pretoria. It alleged that South Africa was allowing the LLA to use its territory as a base for launching attacks on its capital, Maseru. Ntu Moketle, the leader of the BCP and LLA, remained in South Africa under the protection of the apartheid government. Former Flag Plus security police member Joe Mamasela testified that Moketle was living at Flag Plus, where he was supplied with arms. Among the targets of LLA was the Leribe Airport, leading politicians, and the USA Cultural Center. The LLA also established a command in Qwaqwa, where it received support from the South African government and security forces. Economic strangulation of Lesotho. In addition to the military raids into Lesotho, the apartheid government attempted to economically strangle Lesotho. The move was aimed at forcing Lesotho to sign a non-aggression pact with South Africa, just as Swaziland had done in 1982. In October 1982, the South African government had refused to follow the transport of British aircraft, tires and small arms into Lesotho, leaving them stranded in Durban and Johannesburg. Furthermore, an Italian helicopter destined for Lesotho was held by South African authorities. To further cripple Lesotho, South Africa refused to transport a donation of crude oil which was refined in Maputo. In 1983, the government of Lesotho complained of border disruptions which began in May 1983 and continued throughout the year. This was followed by another threat in 1984 when South Africa threatened to expel Lesotho miners at its borders and impose severe border restrictions that would struggle the entire country. They were also deliberate about delays in customs union payment by the South African government. At times, the disruptions were so severe that they caused shortages of basic foodstuff such as milk and meat in Maseru. When the Lesotho government demanded that these issues be addressed, the South African government put conditions such as the demand of Lesotho to expel 3,000 South African refugees at its borders. South Africa halted talks regarding the Highlands Water Project and resumed support for the LLA. When Lesotho threatened to take South Africa to the United Nations (UN), SA Foreign Minister Pik Botha was forced to negotiate. South Africa agreed to stop its economic stranglehold of Lesotho if the country abandoned its threat to take South Africa to the UN and allowed ANC members to voluntarily leave the country. On 1 January 1986, South Africa imposed the border blockade on Lesotho, which resulted in the shortage of food and basic supplies. The blockade was followed by a military coup led by Major General Justin Metsing Lekhanya on 20th January 1986, in which Lebowa was overthrown. Lekhanya announced that all executive and legislative powers would be vested in the king, who would rule through a 6-man military council chaired by Lekhanya. There was widespread suspicion about the military government and its links to the apartheid government. Pretoria demanded the removal of the ANC from Lesotho as a condition for opening the borders. A week after the coup, on 25th January, about 60 ANC members and sympathizers were flown out of Lesotho to Zambia. Among those expelled were leading members of the ANC's intelligence unit, who South Africa regarded as critical for the party's Lesotho-based activities. On the day the ANC members were deported from Lesotho, South Africa lifted its border blockade on the country. Not all members of the ANC left Lesotho. Some members of the Regional Political Military Council (RPMC), such as Tony Yengeni and Wabert Kapa, remained but were later arrested in South Africa. Despite Lesotho's economic dependence on South Africa, Jonathan Lebowa repeatedly criticized the South African government's policy of apartheid and declared his support for the prohibited ANC. He called for international sanctions and established relations with the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. His stance put him on a collision course with South Africa. Conclusion: while MK in Lesotho began a small group, it grew over time, largely due to factors within South Africa. The harassment of political activities in the 1960s and 1970s drove people across the borders into Lesotho. They joined the ANC and other liberation movements, creating a pool of foot soldiers who then launched attacks inside South Africa. Areas that shared borders with Lesotho, such as the Transkei and Qwaqwa, became sites of the infiltration and clashes between the police and MK operatives. Lesotho continued accommodation of the ANC and other liberation movement organizations, and its policy of non-cooperation with South Africa were viewed as a threat by the apartheid regime. It is evident that South Africa used various means to pressure Lesotho into expelling political activities, but when this did not happen, Pretoria resorted to economic sabotage, military raids, and used the LLA to destabilize Lesotho. In honoring Jonathan Lebowa in 2004, with the order of the Companions of Oliver Tambo in gold, the ANC-led government described him as a good and true comrade of liberation movements, including the ANC, PSC, Frelimo, etc., despite the risks to his own government and life. Stay tuned to the next continuation video. And that's it from INJIBS Network. Stay tuned to our celebrity and gossip news.